Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. And I'm Dr. Benjamin Alter, your host.
I'm Dr. Susanna Alter, your co-host, and we're both naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
Today's episode on the podcast is focused on your thyroid, and somehow we have gone 197 episodes without really diving into thyroid health, which is very curious considering that thyroid conditions are so common in our world today. In this conversation, we're going to be talking about hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, autoimmune thyroiditis, and really just optimizing thyroid function and how to do so using your life, using your diet, and understanding the things that interfere with your body's ability to just thrive naturally.
Exactly. Yeah. And so far, our podcast episodes that we have we've skirted around the topic of thyroid. We have a few podcast episodes talking about autoimmune conditions. We have one talking about hormonal health where we touch upon the thyroid, but we haven't yet dedicated a whole episode to just thyroid health.
So here we go.
So
thyroid, first of all, it's the gland right here in front of your neck, right? You probably know that. It's part of your endocrine system. It receives messages from your pituitary gland, which is the master endocrine gland in your brain, and the hypothalamus, which is part of your brain. And then it releases hormones that stimulate cellular metabolism and just kind of promote and regulate kind of our barometer in our body to some extent. And as we like to emphasize all the time, everything in your body is so intricately connected, especially your endocrine system. So when there is one endocrine disorder, when there's one endocrine gland that's kind of out of balance, then another endocrine gland is going to sweep in and kind of support that process, whether it's the adrenals, or whether it's the pituitary or pineal gland or any of the other endocrine glands. They're all so connected, and all of the hormones that are flowing throughout your body, right? So that being said, when we're talking about the thyroid hormone, it secretes a few different hormones that when we're talking about the thyroid gland secretes a few different hormones that can be measured, and based on those laboratory measurements, we can diagnose a hypo or hyper functioning thyroid gland. But that diagnosis, or that laboratory measurement rather, is just a snapshot in time, just a pinpoint snapshot in time. So the other thing that's really important to know with regard to your body is that everything is going up and down and all around, and there's cycles and rhythms. And just because your thyroid hormones might be a little bit on the low side, a little bit on the high side, that doesn't in and of itself really mean anything. But that being said, we're going to entertain the conversation of hyper and hypothyroidism, consistently low levels of thyroid hormone production or consistently elevated levels of thyroid hormone production. And really the way that this is actually diagnosed is not looking at the thyroid hormones per se, but looking at thyroid stimulating hormone, which tells the thyroid gland to produce thyroid hormone. So if there is a high level of thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, then that means that your thyroid gland is actually functioning on the low side of things. Then there's a little hypothyroidism. So high TSH, low thyroid function, or hypothyroidism. Low TSH corresponds with high thyroid function, or hyperthyroidism. So just getting that out of the way. And now where do we go from here?
Well, thank you for that introduction. That was great. Yeah, and I think, so of course the most common thyroid conditions that we see are hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so let's talk about some of the causes of these conditions because, in the conventional medical world, the list of causes is pretty extensive.
It
There's
is.
several different things that can,
I thought it's
well,
just like autoimmune or not
well,
autoimmune.
no, there's a long list, but
Oh,
the main cause is
autoimmune.
autoimmunity.
Autoimmune, quote unquote, Hashimoto's hypothyroiditis. That
Hmm.
is the by far and away the most common thyroid condition. Hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease is much less common. Um, I don't know what the percentage is, but anyways, hypothyroidism is definitely affects more people, and usually, more often than not, it is quote unquote autoimmune. Hashimoto's variety of the thyroiditis. That means that there are quote unquote, I'm doing a lot of quotes in this episode. There are quote lots of auto antibodies circulating in the bloodstream as well that can be measured, detected, and labeled, diagnosed as quote unquote autoimmune Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Yes. But if you've listened to our episodes on autoimmunity, you already know our stance on any kind of autoimmune condition, which is that, simply put, autoimmune conditions don't line up with the truth that we know, which is that the body is always healing itself, that the body is always doing its best to bring your physiology back into balance all
Yeah,
the time.
and this isn't just some far out philosophy, you guys. This is real. Your body is always healing itself, and we're not going to spend today's episode talking about all the evidence, the science that supports that fact, but focusing in on the thyroid condition. There's more and more research and science that is bubbling up because let's face it, we really are just looking at the tip of the iceberg most of the time when we're talking about these physiologic conditions. And at the tip of the iceberg, we see inflammation of the thyroid gland. That's pretty much what we see, but we don't really know what's causing that. Anyone can say, oh, yeah, there's inflammation happening. Well, inflammation comes from something, right? Your body just doesn't get inflamed just out of nowhere. It doesn't happen that way. So, what's causing the inflammation? The biggest culprit that actually science is starting to reveal more so through real scientific studies is that there are chronic latent viral infections that we all have. We all have exposures to viruses all throughout our lives, and our immune system does what it does best at fighting down that virus and bolstering our health and our immunity. But that virus is part of us once we are exposed to us, for better and for worse. It actually keeps our immune system on check. But if we do undergo a period of stress, if we are exposed to a large degree of toxins, if we do deplete ourselves nutritionally with a junk food diet, or just are starved and stressed and strung out, whatever the case may be, then our immune system gets suppressed and our chronic viral infections that are always in us and part of us have an opportunity to grab on hold and express themselves, reproduce, cause that inflammation, and disrupt our body's normal functioning. Just so happens to be that one of the most common places for these viruses to spend their time is in the thyroid gland and a lot of the endocrine glands for that matter. And the consequence of that is, once again, inflammation of the thyroid gland, overproduction or underproduction of thyroid hormones. And so root cause, chronic infections. That's what science is showing us more and more. So therefore, the solution is immune support, immune boosting,
Right.
and living a lifestyle that is mindful of our toxic exposure, mindful of our stress relationship, and all these kind of things.
Right. And this makes sense. What you're saying, it explains why someone might develop hypothyroidism after pregnancy, which
Yeah.
is a big traumatic, it's a beautiful experience, but also a traumatic experience. Maybe they develop thyroid issues after they moved into a moldy house or after they, received
After they got divorced.
Yes, after
Or
they
after
got divorced.
menopause. Menopause is also like a stress physiologically, a lot of changes, transitions, and things happening in the body.
Yes, anything that would suppress the immune system. So yeah, so when we talk about what can we do to heal our thyroid, again, we're really asking the question, what can we do to stimulate our natural immune system, our natural defenses, to help put these viruses back into a dormant state in the body so that they're not causing inflammation of the thyroid. And really, the best way to do it is by changing your lifestyle in a way that is going to promote overall immunity, mainly with nourishing, whole food, plant-based ways of eating.
So I'm sitting over here smiling because, Susanna always says, oh, the best way to do it is this, this, and this. And I'm sitting over here thinking,
the
only way to do it is this, this, and this. Anything else is just going to be symptom management. Of course, when you're taking thyroid hormone replacement, we're not really curing your thyroid condition. That's obvious. We're managing that symptom, hopefully pretty effectively. The only way to really cure these conditions that are based on our immune system, based on our vitality, these conditions that are very much within our control to reverse and heal from. The only way to do that is through how we're living. There's nothing that your doctor has. There's nothing that your functional medicine doctor has. There's nothing that your naturopathic doctor has, or your nutritionist, or any holistic healer has for you that you need. What you need is to change your life in a way that aligns with nature, in a way that nourishes yourself deeply, and in a way that allows your body to naturally regain strength and to thrive and to live in an immune boosting way. That's really what it comes down to. And the immune system has been very much on all of our minds in recent times. And we're taught, specifically relating to these acute infections that we might be exposed to. But really, it's all about maintaining harmonious, healthy relationships with all pathogens, with all organisms, with all types of life, including bacteria, viruses, and fungi and yeast. All of these things are part of our ecosystem, and it's just a matter of knowing how to nourish ourselves so that we can have and maintain these healthy relationships.
Yeah. So what does that look like?
Yeah.
How do we nourish ourselves to maintain these healthy relationships? And I think the first thing to touch on is that there are foods out there that do directly suppress the immune system.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think the first thing to do is to get away. Rather than add things to the picture, we want to strip away anything that is getting in the way. Because
Exactly.
when we just focus on the fact that the body heals itself, then we get things out of the way that are in preventing that process from happening.
Right. We remove the obstacles to cure. And so some of the main obstacles that are found in a lot of people's diets are these specific foods that do suppress immunity. The first one, the first category, is really any animal product.
Yeah.
And the reason for this is that any animal product, whether it's meat, dairy, or eggs, it's going to contain a good amount of toxins in it, whether it's heavy metals that have been bioaccumulating in that animal, or herbicides and pesticides from the feed that animal has been eating. It's all going to be stored up in the tissues and the secretions of these animals. And when we think about what toxins do to the immune system, they basically just interfere with the immune system's ability to do its job.
Yeah. So our recommendation nutritionally is to eat low on the food chain and to not subject ourselves to those environmental exposures that come through our food supply, mainly via animal products. Those toxins are definitely accumulating, especially if we consider breakfast, lunch, and dinner throughout our lives. Then it's just like we're filling up on these things that we don't want to fill up on. In addition to the toxins that are in the food supply, mainly found in animal products, Animal products are a great way to harbor other pathogenic organisms, bacteria, viruses, and whatnot that might not cause acute symptoms. Like you might eat a hamburger, cooked well done or whatever, and you might not get a stomach ache, but that hamburger has tons and tons and tons of bacteria that are not beneficial bacteria. They're not adding to your microbiota diversity. They're not contributing to your innate health. They are stressing and straining your immune system in a deleterious way, in a way that kind of takes your immunity and all of your vital energy away from what it needs to do, away from what it can be doing, which is healing your thyroid, boosting your immune system, and all of these things. And it focuses that energy on just keeping you alive from the pathogenic organisms that you were introduced to during lunch.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Additionally, some of these animal products, especially dairy and eggs, they can directly feed certain viruses as well. So again, we don't want to be introducing food for the virus. We want to be starving the viruses and just supporting overall immunity to really knock out the virus.
Yeah, so of course, if we're not eating meat, fish, dairy, and eggs, we are going to be eating fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, a little bit of nuts and seeds, a bit of herbs and spices. These are the things that make up your whole food, plant-based, nutrient-dense, super healing, immune-boosting way of eating. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. But we did want to focus on some specific nutrients within those plant foods that are super duper awesome when it comes to thyroid healing. And focusing on the foods, right? Because we can source these nutrients from supplements, from capsules, from various products, but really the food harnesses the synergy and bioavailability of these nutrients so that your body can actually put it all to use, while also, of course, giving your body the fiber, the fuel, the micronutrients, and all the other things that promote cellular health and detoxification and create energy on a fundamental level for your body to heal.
Right. Yeah. So one of those nutrients is iodine, and iodine is really needed in the production of thyroid hormones. So iodine is it's one of those minerals that can be tricky for us to find in the diet, but it's very, very rich in sea vegetables. So bring in the seaweed, bring in the nori, the dulse, the kelp, whatever you like. That's really going to be one of the best sources of iodine in your diet.
Yeah. And then the other big one for your thyroid specifically is selenium. And I see a comment. Thank you, Kim, sharing with us that iodine and selenium help the thyroid. The thing that selenium does is it aids in the conversion of inactive thyroid hormone into active thyroid hormone. Conversion of T4, or I'm blanking on the name. Thyroxine, whatever.
Tetra or something.
Yeah, T4 to T3. T3 is your active thyroid hormone, and in order to produce T3, you need selenium. And selenium, Brazil nuts is where selenium is by far and away the most abundant in the diet. So sometimes we usually eat a couple Brazil nuts a day to keep the doctor away.
Yes, exactly.
And then the other nutrients are really basic immune boosting nutrients, right?
Vitamin C, zinc. So again, vitamin C we love to also source from whole foods.
Not the store, but the foods.
Yes, yeah, from whole plant foods. And of course, if you look up and Google what foods are highest in vitamin C, you'll get a nice list of that.
Or we'll tell you right here and now.
That
you don't have to send them to Google.
No. I'm saying, you'll find your bell peppers and your citrus and things like that. But we actually like to take it to the next level in our kitchen with food powders that are specifically very high in vitamin C. And those include amla, which is also called Indian gooseberry,
or amalaki.
Also Acerola cherry is very high in vitamin C, and so is camu berry. And so you can get these berries in a powder form, add them to a smoothie, and that'll really increase your overall vitamin C intake.
And then the other great one is rose hips, which is a great
hips.
tea. You can get rose hips tea, and that's going to be a good source of vitamin C as well. So yeah, vitamin C, zinc for your immune system. Of course, there are all the other minerals and all the other vitamins, right? Vitamin D as well, vitamin A, vitamin E, the B vitamins, all of those things that come in our foods. But these are the really ones that maybe you can go out of your way a little bit to get those kind of super physiologic doses to support the immune system and staying optimally active to heal your thyroid. That's the point, right?
Yeah, and for zinc, it's kind of hard to get a high dose of zinc from food specifically. You'd have to eat a lot of
oysters,
nuts and seeds, which
I think oysters would be the way to get your zinc. But of course, if you're eating your oysters, then there might also be getting things that you don't want.
Yes, so zinc is one of those nutrients that that you can supplement with. And I will say that, when patients come with their lab report and I see a high TSH, maybe it's 7 or 8 or so. Again, like you said, Ben, this is just a snapshot in time. It doesn't mean that their TSH is always that high. But this would be a situation where I would bring in some additional nutrient support, potentially higher doses of these certain nutrients. Also, there are specific herbs that are very, very good for the thyroid as well.
And then, of course, but in addition to bringing in the higher doses of these immune boosting herbs, we need to be more laser focused on the contributors that might be sabotaging our immune system, the toxins in our food, air, water, and stress and these kind of things. So we can't just go gung-ho and on the food and supplements.
Yeah.
We have to really, remember the first step is removing things. The first step is getting rid of things and knowing and trusting that the body does have the innate ability to heal, and it does heal itself absolutely all the time. That's the first thing. Remove stuff.
Yeah.
Step 2 is hyper-focusing on that hyper-nourishing, nutrient-dense, whole food, plant-based diet.
Right. And speaking of taking out, obstacles, there, of course, are a ton of obstacles we didn't even talk about. Like, it's so important to clean up your water. Make sure that you're not introducing toxins into your body through your water. To clean up your air, make sure there's not hidden mold or, lots of chemical kind of air fresheners. And
and all of these things, yes, they're all good. And
Yes.
I got excited because I wanted to share another thing that I think is really important to just touch on really briefly: the energetics of the thyroid gland and the fifth chakra. Sorry, not the third chakra, the fifth chakra, and just kind of the energetic center of the body, the throat, and expression and voice and speaking up and singing and yelling and screaming and expressing, using your vocal cords. And I remember a story in naturopathic medical school of, this is a little woo-woo, you guys, but a treatment for hypothyroidism was to humming is great for activating also the vagus nerve, and also kind of stimulating energy in that area. But what I was going to say is singing into the wind, I think, was like the treatment, was to go to the edge of a cliff and turn toward the wind and sing into the wind. Once again, to just really express against resistance.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
So just consider the state of your self-expression as well if you are dealing with hypothyroidism.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't talk about with food is that there are plant foods that can also be major obstacles to healing. For some people...
What are those?
What are those?
Yeah, what are those?
Like junk food, processed foods, of course.
Those aren't plants. Plants don't come in packages. Plants come...
Well, they're derived from wheat, which is a plant. But anyway, I do want to say that gluten, corn and soy can definitely be an issue. Those would probably be good to take out if you're really wanting to focus in on healing your thyroid. And I want to address cruciferous vegetables because there's a rumor going around that cruciferous vegetables contain goitrogens, which, there are some, a very, very small amount of a constituent that is known as a goitrogen, which basically means it can lead to the cause of a goiter. But you would literally need to eat truckloads. So you don't need to worry about cutting out kale, cutting out broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, any of the cruciferous vegetables.
In fact, you can bring them in as much as your heart's content because these foods are super, super great in terms of their detoxification properties as well as their immune stimulating properties. So the cruciferous vegetables, whoever invented I think it was probably like a scientific study that looked at this one compound in this one broccoli plant and then just extrapolated that one little reductionistic study to mean don't eat broccoli or Brussels sprouts forever if you've ever had a thyroid issue. It's just ridiculous because the fact of the matter is there are so many more healing compounds in those vegetables that completely contradict and outweigh the theoretical negative consequence of that minute amount of a quote unquote goitrogen, right?
Yeah. Okay, one more thing that I'm very excited about.
Cool.
Another great practice to bring energy to the throat is hydrotherapy, where you just simply put a washcloth under hot water, wring it out, place that on your throat, the front of your throat, for 3 minutes.
Or you can wrap it around and just walk around and read a book or whatever.
And then you alternate the hot with a cold, wet washcloth that's wrung out for 30 seconds. You do that for 3 rounds every day. And basically what hydrotherapy does is it redirects fresh blood, fresh, oxygenated, and nutrient-rich blood to the part of the body where the therapy is happening. So in this case, to your thyroid.
So where the blood flows and energy goes, and where energy goes, healing happens. So that's the message of the moral of the story, rather. Your body can and will heal itself when you provide it the nourishment and environment that it wants and needs. And you are empowered and in control of that process. That is the message. And any other thoughts or announcements or anything else for the last minute?
So May 25th, we are starting our next whole food plant-based challenge. This time it is the stress-free series. So we'll still be incorporating lots of good information about how to be successful in transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet, but we're also bringing in a ton of supportive information to support you in increasing peace in your life and stressing less. So if you're interested in joining us, you can head over to www.alter.health/WFPB-challenge, or you can head over to our Facebook group, which is called the Plant-Based and Stress-Free Group, and we'll bring you in right there. That's where the challenge is happening, and we'll guide you through getting registered for the event. But we really hope that you join us for this next challenge because it's really something that we look forward to every 8 weeks or so.
So hopefully you're feeling good and empowered to heal your thyroid. And also, if there's someone in your life who does have thyroid issues, chances are that there is someone in your life who does, if it's not you yourself. Feel free to share this episode with them. Send it off in a text, email, or share it with them in a conversation, whatever it is. Appreciate you spreading the good vibes, getting the word out, healing yourself, and helping to heal the world. So peace and love, you guys. We'll catch you next time on the podcast.
Bye for now.